All right. I'm really excited about this conversation today.
Me too.
Can you first of all tell me a little bit about who you are? What's your name? And
Yeah, my name's Noah Kovner. We know each other through a professional relationship.
Right.
So, I'm an originating branch manager at Cross Country Mortgage, this beautiful office space in North Central Phoenix. I've been in the industry since 2017. It's when I got licensed. I think you've been with us since we made the move to where we are currently, which is Cross Country.
Right. Yeah. No, I love helping you guys out with all the video stuff. You're awesome on camera. You're kind of a one-take Jake. Most of the time you nail what you're doing. So great client. Love working with you. We could hop into personal or business first just to get to know you a little bit more. Which one do you want to go down the personal lane or the business lane?
Let's go down the business lane first, I think. Yeah, I think that's a good place.
So you mentioned you got licensed in 2017.
Yeah.
So almost 7 years, depending on when that was?
Yeah, 6.5 years ago.
6.5.
Yeah.
Why did you get into the industry to start with, and where were you before that?
Sure. So before, I was in corporate America. Basically, the first 10 years outside of college was just corporate, mostly sales and management jobs. And the company I was working for, who will remain nameless, although I guess you could look it up on LinkedIn. But the company I was working for was earning a good living, but it was one of those things where when you work for somebody else, right, a little bit of what you have to do is toe the company line. Mm-hmm. And so I got to the point where, the company would say X, but behind the scenes we're doing Y.
Right.
And I felt like I couldn't reconcile the two anymore. And I got bored, honestly, with what I was doing. It wasn't inspiring anymore. I was always the type of guy who would work twice as hard as my counterparts. But when you're in that industry, a lot of the time, you work twice as hard, you earn 15% more. Mm-hmm. So I knew I wanted to do something where if I really busted my hump, that I would be rewarded accordingly.
Right.
So then I tried to think about what would be personally fulfilling, mm-hmm, right? Like, okay, if I'm going to go do this and I'm going to do something where, essentially you eat what you kill, for lack of a better term.
Right.
What is something I can do, but also will give me a lot of satisfaction? Because I really didn't have that where I was.
Right.
So thought about a couple different opportunities. I knew I was going to leave this company. I hadn't left yet. And one of our clients, coincidentally, who I'd become friendly with, was in the mortgage space. Mm-hmm. And I can remember we had a discussion about, kind of his business and what he was going through. They were going to find a place for their business, some office space. And I remember asking him about it. And
right,
he walked me through it, and I was like, maybe that's the answer. Like, we had bought 2 homes at that time. A home in California, where I'm from, in Los Angeles, and then a home out in Phoenix. Bought in 2004, the first home I bought, right? So like anybody could get a mortgage at that time.
Right.
Like there's no way I should have been given that much debt at that age, making what I was going to make. But the only reason I could afford it was I had a few roommates, and that's how I could float it. And then in Phoenix, we bought a year after we had moved. And I remember like the process wasn't bad. It was just unremarkable, mm-hmm, I guess is what I'd say. And it's like the biggest purchase most people are going to make in their entire lives.
Right. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah. And I remember like we got to closing and they're like, oh, this is how much you need. And like nobody had bothered to explain closing costs to me. So, it wasn't an issue, but it was like, oh, it would have been nice if somebody had mentioned that in addition to this, I'd have to do that.
Right. Hold your hand a little bit.
Hold my hand a little bit, right? This is, one, biggest purchase a lot of people are ever going to make. Mm-hmm. 2, one of the largest assets that they're going to have when they go to retire.
Right.
And 3, like the place where you're going to raise your family. Like this is a big like moment in your life.
That you do only a handful of times.
Most people a couple of times.
Yeah. Right.
And I thought, gosh, if I could have had a better experience there, like that would have been wonderful. I felt like I could help somebody with that.
Right.
My background was in economics. It's what my degree is in.
Okay.
So like the numbers aspect was appealing to me. But then the personal connection with people and making a difference in a really big decision in their lives. Right. I was like, that could be something that meant something. So I felt like here's a guy who was also willing to like, mentor me, train me, mm-hmm, tell me how to build my business.
Hold your hand a little bit.
Yeah, hold my hand. And so I thought like, okay, I've got a guy who's willing to train me. I'm going to do something where everything that I earn is mine. I can really build my own business, and I'm going to help somebody with something really important to their life and also like generationally important.
Right.
So that's how I ended up in the industry. I had no idea really what I was getting myself into.
When you first got started, were you killing it? Or
No.
did it take you a while to kind of catch your stride? And get
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends, I guess, on your definition, you know.
Right.
I knew when I left what I was doing, where I was earning a pretty good amount of money. I remember the guy who brought me in, he says he asks people 3 questions. And if they answer yes to any of them, then he tells them, like, you shouldn't do this.
Right.
So, like, and I answered yes to 2 of those questions. So one was, you know, were you making 6 figures?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yes. So he's like, well, if you're already making 6 figures, like, he would tell people not to change careers.
Right.
And then 2 was, do you have a family? Do you have kids? And I was like, yes, I had 2 kids. And that was another one where he'd say, well, then don't do this.
Right.
I can't remember the third. The third may have been something like, are you comfortable? Or like, do you need to have a regular paycheck?
Right.
Like, do you need to have that
like
comfort level?
Yeah.
Right. Do you, and yeah, do you need to like have something? Do you need to feel that comfort of getting paid every 2 weeks?
Right.
That wasn't as important to me. Like, I was confident I was going to be able to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
But I certainly had a yes answer to the other 2. And so I knew that I was going to go through a certain amount of savings. Right.
Of course.
And I jumped in both feet. There's a lot of ways you can get into the industry, right? You like get on somebody's team or go somewhere where they're going to feed you leads and pay you a salary. But I went self-sourcing right away.
Right.
So that meant I received no paycheck. I had almost no leads. They had sent flyers to like refis on manufactured homes. Right. I remember for like on behalf of the branch. And if you got a call, you know, then you earned some money that was reduced, but you know, they had paid for these leads. Yeah. So I remember the first time I pulled anybody's credit, it was like a 480 mid score. So if people aren't familiar with that, this is a very low score. Like
very low. Yeah.
You have to try to be under 500
right.
really. Like essentially every time somebody's giving you credit, you've not paid them back.
Using and abusing and not.
Right. But people are still giving you credit and you're like, right. It's like that old saying, fool me once, shame on you. Right. But that was the first credit I ever pulled. So I knew I was going to go through savings.
Right.
But that first 6 months, first 8 months, it was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
You know, I earned less. I got licensed in like late April of 17. Okay. I earned less from April to December that year than I earned from January to April in my previous job.
Jeez.
Right. And I had
drop off,
yeah, you know, and my wife was at home taking care of the kids. We had 2 kids, we had a mortgage, we had bills. Mm-hmm. So I would say the flip side was like after those first 6 to 8 months, I really did acclimate very well.
Right.
Like I'd spent that time, I had no choice but to make it work.
Of course, yeah.
It wasn't like I could take time and be like, oh, like I'll warm up. It was like I had to swim really, really quickly.
Right.
So, you know, after those first 6 to 8 months, like that first full year, 2018, I remember I almost made what I had made at the job I had left.
Jeez.
I was very close, sourcing all of my own business. So I thought, okay, if I could do this in the first year, like I can probably really make this happen.
So now 6.5 years in, what does your business look like now? Like, What are you doing on a daily basis? How much has your business grown?
Yeah.
Do you have a team? Like, tell us a little bit about what it looks like today and in the future, where you're going.
Yeah. So, I mean, my personal business has grown a lot.
Right.
You know, I put a lot of effort into constantly improving my business, constantly evaluating the team. So when I started, it's just basically, at least where I was, just me.
Right.
You know, it was me. I processed my own files. I chased my own conditions, prospected myself. Very little support. I met somebody, probably 2 years in, maybe actually earlier than that. It took a while for us to start working together. But, you know, shout out to Jeff Ohm. If he's watching, Jeff was a big part in my early development. From where I was first, you know, I was unaware when I was new in this industry, but like you are constantly being recruited. Mm-hmm. Like it's, you know, a never ending stream of phone calls, texts, and emails. And the reason being is that, you know, as an LO, you are inexpensive to have on staff if you are self-sourcing. Mm-hmm. But the upside exists. So people are like, great, like I can bring somebody on, not going to pay them anything. They're going to find and get paid on what they bring in, and then there's a little bit for the branch.
Right. And if they don't do anything, it's
not a big deal, right? So, you know, I got all those calls, and as my production grew, like I got more of those calls, right? So when somebody saw, oh, you know, I think my first year I did like right around that first full year, 2018, I did like around $14 million. Okay. Which for somebody self-sourcing their own business at that time was pretty good. Yeah. Like when I told people that, they were like impressed. Yeah. And I didn't really realize, I didn't have a frame of reference for it. And so like you'd get more and more of those calls. So, you know, I get this, I think I got like an Instagram or a Facebook message from him. Maybe it was a text, because we both knew an agent that we work with, right? So we knew this agent. Agent knew Jeff was trying to build his branch, and suggested we meet. But this was like one of a million messages I get. So I was like, thanks, buddy. Like, thanks, but no thanks. I'm good.
Yeah, turn him down for another coffee. Everybody
right,
wants to,
exactly.
let's
Hey,
go
let's
get
grab a coffee.
Okay,
and I'm like, no, I'm okay. I'm happy
fifth
where
time
I
this
am.
week I've heard that.
Right.
Yeah.
But he knew somebody gave him some inside information. So he knew I was a Dodgers fan, which I know to you and many Phoenicians is not a positive characteristic.
We had our way with them this year, though.
It's true.
Which was nice.
Right?
Yeah.
So he knew I was a Dodgers fan. We both grew up in LA. And so he's like, hey, forget about work. Let's just meet as a couple of Dodgers fans. And that was like my soft spot. I was like, like, okay, all right. Like, I'll sit with a Dodgers fan. Okay, we could have a coffee. So we sat down and had a coffee, and Jeff had gone through what I was kind of experiencing, and maybe didn't really know I was experiencing it, which was you have like a lot of peaks and valleys in your business when you're the only one doing anything in your business. So, I'd get a bunch of files and I'd spend time processing and working through them operationally. And that meant the time to prospect was gone.
Right.
So I'd have a really nice month, and then a really small month, and a really nice month, and a really small month. Peaks and valleys, right? Anybody who's in this industry knows it.
100%.
And he was like, listen, you're never going to be able to get past this hump if you don't have some additional support. Right. And like, we've built that support in. So it took a while. Like, it took 6 months, I think, of us just chatting about what it would look like, and the structure changed during the time about how we
before you
together.
Actually became
before I actually decided, okay, I was going to make a move.
Right.
And every time you make a move, if it's intentional, right, like the idea is you're upgrading the people who are surrounding you as it relates to like somebody who's pushing you to get better. Right. At least that was like my intention. And at the time, he produced more than I did, so I was like, all right, like, I don't want to be the anchor on this team, right? And I can see what somebody's doing that's successful, and I can replicate that. And I always encourage people, like, what I do now is like very systematized, right? So the way I've been able to grow my business has been through like very strict adherence to a schedule, right? So like certain days, I know I'm going to call certain people with certain messages. I've got certain follow-up that's scheduled. A lot of it's automated now, which hadn't started before. And then we built support team around, right? So like, I have a fantastic right hand, right? So like, if anybody who's seen this, who's worked with me, knows Mary. Mary is my right hand. She is amazing. Like, I don't know what I'd do without her. But like, I didn't even know that I should have a person like that,
right?
Or have a processor in your branch who's chasing down your conditions, right? So if you've worked with me, you talk to Michael, like, he's fantastic. He's an amazing processor. And then having somebody like Bree on our team who does all of our business development, right? So she's looking for ways to add value to agents, to bring in, whether it's educational or whether it is promotional or helping us throw events, doing all these kinds of things. And I didn't know any of those people existed when I was new.
Right, you're trying to do all that stuff.
Trying to do it all myself.
And now you can divvy out that type of work, which then opens up time for you to focus on the meat and potatoes of what you need to do.
Right, because at the end of the day, like, there are elements of our job that we can delegate.
Right.
But the reality is, like, nobody's going to prospect for you. Like, I can't get somebody, a little bit to, in regards to what Bree does is a little bit of that.
Right.
But mostly, like, if I want to grow my business and I want to grow the number of relationships I have, like, that's something I have to do. But like, Mike can do a great job of chasing down conditions when we have a conditional approval, right? And Mary can do a great job of following up and sending out loan updates every Friday, and following up with clients and keeping files ready and getting files prepared once they come in the door. She can be the first eyes on that. I don't have to do that. But if I don't prospect and I don't look to grow relationships, nobody is.
Yeah. So,
now I've got that, and now we've built that out for a whole team of loan officers too, right? So now they have access, even if they're not producing at a high level, they've got access to somebody like Mary, somebody like Michael, somebody like Bree, who can help them grow their business, right? So somebody who's in that same spot I was, where it was like, I got a peak in a valley and like, I'm doing everything myself. There's only so much you can do there.
Right. And now you have that to offer when you're building out your team.
And now we have that to offer to build out our team. That's awesome. This year, 2023, has been challenging for a lot of people, myself included. I would say a very small minority of loan officers have grown their business from last year to this year. I think average transaction volume's down like 40 some odd percent. And we all know rates have not come down this year. They've gone up,
right?
At least until very recently. Yeah. But, I can be like very proud of, one of the yellows on our team, Justin, who who I love, grew his business from last year to this year.
Yeah, no, he's killing it.
That's like remarkable.
Yeah.
And my business is going to be like close to flat, which in this market is like, much better than many people are doing.
Yeah.
So it's a testament to like what we've been able to build, what we've been able to create to allow me to get out there, meet more people, talk to more people, build more relationships.
So kind of down that same vein of what you've built, I know, and it's public knowledge that now you and Jeff are no longer together. He's moved on to another opportunity. So what does it look like going into 2024, branch manager, right?
Yeah.
Now for you, you were co-branch managers.
Correct.
Are you building out the team?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what the next year looks like. Maybe you can go into goals or what you foresee in the next year, 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, I'm optimistic about 2024. We already right now at the end of 23 have seen rates come down from their peaks, right? So that's already a good sign. And I would say most people are forecasting that rates probably drop during 2024. So I think that's some, a little tailwind for us versus this year, which was a lot of headwinds. So I'm optimistic about that. Definitely looking to build the branch. I mean, to your point, Jeff decided he wanted something else out of his career and his business. And I love Jeff and will always have, be grateful for him. And we remain friends.
Right.
But what that allows me to do is really build the branch in my image, really build it out the way that I think, I can be of service to others. The reason that's important to me is like somebody did that for me, and I owe it to the next group of folks. So somebody who is at that level where they're at, 10 to 15 to $20 million looking to, hey, how can I grow my business and get to the next step? Like that's what we've built in the branch, right? And that's who we're looking to bring on. Somebody who wants to get after it, somebody who, is investing their time and their effort in, but just needs a little bit of guidance, a little bit of accountability, a little bit of also like strategic planning of like, how do I do this? What do I do? I know I want to do this, but I need somebody to point me in the right direction. And those are things we do. We have LO meetings, we go over our goals. I'm going to hold people accountable. I've been coached for a very long time in the industry, which I think has been helpful. And I can then provide all of that coaching that I learned to a new loan officer. And I think benefit for some people is I haven't been doing this for 20 years. Right. It's not like I have my business just because I've been around forever.
Right.
Like I accelerated my business very quickly. Anybody can do it. They're willing to put in the work. If they're willing to just follow what is honestly a basic plan, like anybody can do it. It's just a matter of having the right tools, having the right accountability partners, and having the right, structure and strategy around your business. So
nice. So a little bit, you kind of talked about it, but in expanding your team, the ideal candidate for you is somebody who's already established himself a little bit. Is that what you're saying? Where you take on brand new LOs, or is it like, hey,
we can take on brand new LOs. I think it depends on the LO if you're brand new. Right. Like when I've talked to people who got into the industry or who were looking to get into the industry, and an old coworker of mine moved out here and then got into lending. We had chatted about it. And I said, you got a couple options. You can go the route of really learning the business somewhere where they're going to provide you a bunch of leads and you're just going to pick up the phone and you're going to take a lot of shots. Right. So like somebody's going to pass you the ball. You're going to have a lot of opportunities. They're going to vary in quality, and the working environment's probably not something that most people want to do long term. But you'll get a lot of opportunities. So that's one option, and like you'll get paid a salary, so it's a little bit of an easier transition.
Right.
But if you are ready to like jump in 2 feet and you want to build your business immediately from the ground up, we would take somebody new as long as they knew what to expect. Right. Ideally, we're probably looking at people who've got, a year or two in the business, maybe longer, somewhere in that $10 to $20 million range. That is like, how do I get over the hump? Right? Somebody who's been 8, 9, 10, 9, 8, like around that level, 15, 20, but just can't quite step to the next level. That's where I think I can provide a lot of value. One, because of the structure we built, but two, because I did it and I did it pretty recently. And I know the type of help that they're going to need,
That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that was a problem for me. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know why I was like stuck here. But luckily, very quickly, I was able to identify it. That was scary too. Was stepping out, like leaving the first place. I remember they told me, like, you don't know how good you have it. Like, you don't know how great it is. Right. And so that's all that. I thought that was the truth. I was like, oh, yeah, this must be the best solution. And it was good, but it certainly wasn't like the best. But I didn't know that. And so, stepping out and having that success, it's easy for me to relate to somebody who's a little bit nervous about leaving where they are.
Yeah.
Well, I've got it so great. Like, well, tell me what's so great about where
why
you
is
are.
it so great?
Why is it so great? Like, are they helping you accomplish your goals? Are they talking to you about your goals?
Mm-hmm.
Is it more than just lip service? So, yeah, that's what we're looking to build, right? Though that's somebody who I think I can provide a lot of value for because we've done it and we've done it recently.
Yeah. What would you say is one of the most rewarding parts of what you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's something I think about a lot, obviously. Like when I made the transition, it was something that was important to me, that I did something that was going to be personally and professionally rewarding. But I would say like one of the most rewarding things is helping a first-time home buyer get keys to that first home.
Yeah.
I mentioned it. I bought a home when I was pretty young. I bought my first home at 23.
23
years old
I
in
was
Los
definitely
Angeles.
not buying I was not buying a house when I was 23. Let me tell you that.
And but what it did for me, like moving forward, was really powerful, right? I mean, the power of real estate is that not only does it provide you and your family a home,
Mm-hmm.
but traditionally it's been a great investment.
Yeah.
And so we were able to leverage that first home into the home we bought out here. Luckily, it, even through the crash, it appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And it set us up so well for that next step, And long term, I remember I read this statistic, which is insane, which is that the net worth of your average homeowner is 40 times the net worth of your average renter.
Yeah, seen that.
40 times, which is an absurd figure. 40 times. If I said, like, I can help you invest in something that is going to increase your net worth
40.
by 40 times.
Yeah.
Everybody would say, yeah, like let me invest in that.
Let me in on that.
Let me in
please.
on that. And that's like the secondary benefit of a home. The primary benefit of a home is that it, serves as a place for you and your family to live.
To live, yeah. A
right?
roof over your head, yeah.
Put a roof over your head, right? And if you want to have kids, this is a place your kids are going to grow up.
Yeah.
It's just a really great ancillary benefit that historically these things have also been great investments.
Right.
And that's one of the best feelings, right? Is like handing the keys over to somebody for the first time.
And knowing you're sending them down that path of
Exactly.
Yeah.
Knowing
awesome.
shoot, this is this, if they're a first-time home buyer, this could be life-changing for them and their kids and, people that follow, which is really powerful,
Mm-hmm.
right? And can be, I should say, a really scary process.
Yeah.
I'll tell people, you're going to feel all the feelings during
Mm-hmm.
this transaction. You'll be really excited. You'll be really happy. You'll also be really terrified.
You'll be nervous.
And very anxious.
You'll be scared.
And nervous and scared. All of the feelings, you're going to have them all
Right.
during this process. And if we can help that and take away some of that anxiety and away some of the nerves, and they know that, myself and the real estate agent that they're working with are handling all of that stuff, that is a huge benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Makes the process so much better. And then obviously getting referrals from those people is super rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
You helped them, they remembered, and now they're like, hey,
Yeah.
referring you the people they know,
It's nothing-
family, friends,
No bigger
loved
compliment
ones.
than a referral. Yeah,
It
that's
is,
amazing.
right? It's the biggest compliment anybody can pay you is
Mm-hmm.
to refer somebody they know to use you, especially in an industry like ours where
Right.
everything that you do is incumbent upon what you do.
Right.
We've built an entirely referral-based business.
Yeah.
We're not spending money on trigger leads. We're not spending a ton of money on mailers and getting people to call us and, sending them stuff. It's referral based from our agents and our past clients and our sphere. And so the fact that we built this referral based business is, I'm so grateful, but it really means a lot.
Yeah.
So for sure, it's one of the most rewarding things is seeing that.
Yeah. I know that feeling too. Handing keys, especially to a first-time home buyer
It's the best.
after they go through the entire process. And the excitement, and then being able to follow up with them a few months later. They make adjustments to the home, or they are excited to show you pictures, or
Yep.
they get a little alert that their equity has gone up.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my gosh, this really is working. So yeah, no, I
Exactly.
totally feel that.
Especially over the past several years.
Yeah.
It's you talk to somebody and they are looking at what their home's worth, and they've made, in Phoenix, I read recently, the past 5 years, the average home's appreciated 68%.
Yeah, that's insane.
So if somebody bought a home, they've lived there for 5 years, and they've got all this equity and this great asset just by living there and paying their mortgage.
Which goes back to the point of increasing your net worth just by simply having a part in home ownership.
By living.
Yeah, by living and putting a roof over your head.
Yeah.
Making that leap, because some people are afraid to make that leap.
100%.
Which you help them with, obviously. Yeah. Like, there's the down payment, there's this. That's more than I'm paying per month renting. But when they actually make that leap and then they see the fruits of their labor and the benefits of it, that's awesome. So,
exactly.
What about challenges that you face? I know you've mentioned a couple little challenges here and there, but what would you say is maybe the biggest challenge that you run into most frequently?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, and I would probably put it in two different categories. So one would be like biggest challenge for clients that you kind of alluded to just then, which was like, it takes money and it takes preparation as a client. You've got to have an eye on your credit. You've got to have money saved, right? At least a little bit. There are down payment assistance programs out there that can really help bridge that gap.
Right.
But you've got to get yourself ready financially, and from a credit perspective, that can be a big challenge. And then the other is building relationships with real estate agents. I remember when I was new, when we bought our home in Phoenix, the guy who was the listing agent on the home we bought was a very productive real estate agent. Right. So we buy our home, and he was my neighbor. He lived like 6 houses down.
Okay.
And keep in mind, when I got into this, I knew like 2 real estate agents. And I was like, oh, great, I'll just call this guy and he'll send me business.
Yeah, that's how it's going to go,
like,
right?
super naive now, right? But I was like, perfect. Like, I'll call him. He's my neighbor. We bought a home that he was listing. Like, for sure, he'll send me business.
Yeah.
And I called him, and he was very nice and very gracious. But he was like, no, I've known the same person for 18 years who's been my lending partner. And I was like, oh.
That's how it works.
That's how it works. Like, maybe I slightly misjudged how easy it was going to be. But that is another challenge is, productive real estate agents typically have lender relationships. So the question is like, how do you provide extra value? How do you break down that door? How do you show that you can do something that their current partner isn't, or be there when their current partner, makes a mistake, or if their current partner leaves, that you're the one there, right? There's a million different instances where you hope to get some business or have a product or a service that somebody else doesn't have, right? And that is a big challenge, right? So, we work with new agents, existing agents. We'll work with any agents, but that is always a struggle for people in our industry if they're working the referral-based piece.
Right.
Is like, how do you crack that relationship? The other challenges certainly are just our business is uneven. End of the year is usually slower. So teaching like new agent or new lenders, like new loan officers, like this time is going to be difficult in the year traditionally. Like, you need to prepare and make sure you're setting stuff aside, because November, December, January, people don't want to leave because of the holidays. They don't want to move.
Right.
So like acknowledging that. And then in my position, my capacity now as a manager, certainly managing people and recruiting people, that is a challenge.
Yeah.
It's scary to leave. The first, I think earlier when you asked me like what my story was, it took me 6 months to leave where I was.
Right.
Like, I was terrified for sure. I remember talking to my wife about it. Like, I was scared. So, in that element, that's another challenge. Like, understanding that it's scary for somebody to leave. And I can remember that still, but that is a challenge. It's going to take, some momentum to get them over that hill.
Yeah.
And that's certainly a challenge. Recruiting the right people, right? Maintaining the right culture. And then all the normal manager stuff, right? Just running a business.
Right. In general.
Yeah. It's a big, it's a big tug on your time with all the other things you have to do. So, it's all in the support systems. I am lucky, I try to think about it this way too from the start and ongoing. I went home and told my wife at some point that, hey, I know I'm getting a paycheck every 2 weeks, and like, we're supporting our family and we're doing all these things. I'm going to just stop receiving a paycheck for who knows how long, right? Like, trust me, I got it.
I'll figure it out.
I'm going to make no money for a couple of months here. Like, maybe I'll make a little bit of money in 6 months, but trust me, long-term, this is going to work out.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, okay. She was on board.
She trusted
supported
you.
me 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, so fortunate that I had a partner that was that trusting. And then when I was leaving, hey, I'm going to leave what's worked out pretty well for these first 2 years to do something else. And then when we opened our branch, like, hey, I'm going to move from a place where I was really, really successful to start this new thing. And she's been supportive 100% of the time.
That's awesome.
Which is like, I can't even express how important that is that you have a partner. You know, I'm sure same for you.
Yeah.
You know,
I made a massive shift from what I was doing when I first met my wife to what I'm currently doing now, and she's been supportive 100% of the way. And without her support, you know, I'm a crazy person, and it's probably hard to be with me, but she supports everything that I do, and I've been able to. She knows, just like your wife, that you're gonna make it happen. But having that support helps you get to that point. So.
I mean, there's no way I could have done it without it.
No
you know,
way.
Like if she had said, no, you can't do that. Like I don't, you know, I'm not comfortable with that. I would have really had to think about what I was going to do.
Yeah. No, I feel that.
The fact that she was like, yeah, I believe in you. Like I told her this was what I was going to do. This is how I was going to do it. And she said, okay. I mean,
it's awesome.
Yeah. And it was the best decision professionally I could have ever made.
Yeah. One more question professionally.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you work with newer agents, established agents. What can any agent expect from working with you and your team? What's kind of your elevator pitch? What's it like working with Noah and the team at Cross Country?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I would hope that like if you asked my agents that they would say these things.
Yeah.
So if you're an agent and you're watching this, like feel free to call any agents that work with us, see if they actually say these things.
Drop a comment, say yes.
Exactly.
That is how it is.
Right.
Back them up.
But I would say like one is we're really communicative. Big frustration for a lot of agents is they feel like they don't know where the process is with a client who's under contract or with a lead. We are very communicative. We have systems built around that so that everybody feels like they know what's happening at any given time with a transaction or with a lead. So communication is key for us, and I think we do a really good job. I think people also, the agents we work with also know we really care about them and their clients. They mean a lot. Like I take it personally that they've trusted me to help this client of theirs.
Right.
That is a huge, it's a huge honor that they're paying us, right? So they know that we are going to take care of their clients. They know that we are relentless when it comes to figuring out a solution. Some borrowers are very easy, right? Some borrowers, W-2 employment, perfect credit, money's in the checking and savings account. Like it's a slam dunk.
Right.
But we deal with a lot of clients who don't fit that mold. And our ability to overcome obstacles and think outside the box and find a solution and get creative and maybe nurture somebody. Maybe they come to us and their credit's not great. And we have to put them on a plan for 6 months to get there.
Yeah.
Like our agents know that we're going to do that and that we're going to, you know, treat these people well and that we're going to follow up, be friendly, be invested, you know, all the normal stuff that somebody would expect, right? So like, you know, our rates are competitive, our service is good, but it's beyond that. You know, those other things are like the basics.
Yeah.
And then we're like committed to helping our agents grow their business too, if they want, right? So like we're going to provide classes and education and resources for them to help. We're going to get them involved if there are things they want to do to help grow their business. You know, Bree, our business development coordinator, like half of her job is helping agents with what they're doing because they're the agents that we work with.
Right.
So, you know, I would say if you're an agent and you're looking for somebody who is going to treat your client wonderfully, is going to communicate well, has every product under the sun. It's one of the benefits of working at Cross Country is like there is not a product that we do not carry. And then also is going to follow up with your clients. And then after we close, we follow up with them and we call them, right? So I call them on their anniversaries and we send them texts on their birthdays and all these things.
Keep the relationship going beyond the close date.
Going. Yeah. Exactly. So, you know, you're hand to hand with them for 30 days or however long your escrow period is. But then we're going to continue to engage with them beyond. So these are clients for life.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I can attest to as well, like you are very knowledgeable in anything that you're talking about. I shoot videos with you all the time. Like I said, you're a one-take Jake. You know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So you're a good source or wealth of knowledge to
Thanks.
Your clients, your agents, all those kind of people are going to, you know, have a great experience with you all around.
Yeah,
so.
It's something we pride ourselves in. I mean, there's countless clients who come to us and like, hey, I talked to somebody, they said this, we can't do it. I can't do it because of that, or I can't do it because of this. And like many, many times we're able to do it just because we know about additional programs. We know the guidelines better. Like we're committed to helping somebody if they're committed to helping themselves, right? We're going to be there with you for a year if it takes a year. We're going to be there, right? So, yeah, it's important that you're an expert in your craft.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Well, let's shift gears a little bit to the personal side, unless there's anything else you want to touch on with your business and all that kind of stuff. I always think it's important. I'm a big proponent of share a little bit about yourself. So you mentioned obviously starting in LA.
Yeah.
You mentioned you're married. You mentioned the kids.
Yeah.
Like, tell us a little bit about who you are as an individual. What makes you tick?
Yeah.
Favorite sports teams? What do you like to do? When you're not writing loans.
Yeah.
Favorite beer? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. As I mentioned, like I made a career shift late. It's like a second career almost. But I was born and raised in LA. I spent the first really 33 years of my life in Los Angeles. Aside from the 4 years I was in college in San Diego. It's like pretty similar to Los Angeles. It's like a less crowded version of Los Angeles. And got married 15 years ago now. Met my wife in college. I've got a couple siblings. So I've got 2 sisters and a younger brother. We're still close.
That's my same family dynamic too.
Oh, there you go.
Brother,
yeah. And I've got a couple nieces and nephews that were very close. Like if you follow me and if your Instagram is like a reflection of who you are, people will be like, okay, you're a loan officer. And they'd be like, you're into the Dodgers and cars and your family. And like, that's a pretty good summary.
USC, right?
Yeah, USC.
USC as well.
Big USC fans. Primarily because of my nephew. So my sister's son plays football at USC.
Okay, cool.
He plays quarterback. Today is the 18th. Yeah, 18th of December.
18th, yep.
So on the 27th is the Holiday Bowl, and he's getting his first start in a bowl game.
There you go.
At quarterback.
That's awesome.
We're very excited. We're very geeked up for him. Whole family's going out to San Diego on the 26th really cool. For the game. But yeah, outside of work, my family's super important. You mentioned like I'm into cars. I'm into sports. My favorite team is the Dodgers. It does not make a lot of fans for people who have been in Phoenix for a long time.
Dodgers are cool. Shohei, that's awesome.
I had one of my agents who's a big Diamondbacks fan just send me a text saying how much he hated the Dodgers when they signed Shohei.
Yeah. I mean, I knew it was going to be the Dodgers. It's always
I think a lot of people felt like
it's always the Dodgers.
Was, very likely it was going to end up that way. But, I've been a Dodgers fan since I can remember.
How many times have you been to Dodger Stadium?
Oh, I don't know.
I've been there like 4 or 5 times, and I actually love Dodger Stadium. It's so historic. It's really cool. The backdrop is awesome. Like I do like it.
Yeah,
but no,
you don't like the team. I
don't like the commute to get in there.
Oh, it's the worst.
My brother-in-law Austin and I went to a game one time, and I think he didn't expect it. I kind of did. It was like 2 hours to even just get in.
Getting in is bad, and getting out is like twice as bad.
Horrible.
Like they have not. In all the time the Dodgers have been there, they can't figure out how to get people in and out of the stadium in an efficient way. You just like learn to live with it.
Yeah.
And
it's part of the experience.
Yeah.
You're not going to see the first inning unless you leave your house way early. And if you want to watch the entire game, you're not getting home till real late.
Yeah. It's like an hour and a half getting out of the stadium. Like just getting out of the stadium.
Then you got to drive.
Yeah, and then you got to drive, right? And it's like probably not close to where you are. But yeah, huge Dodgers fan. I'm a big 49ers fan, so another team that's not popular in Phoenix. But, big 49ers fan. I'm a big F1 fan. Okay. Formula One's become like really popular here.
Were you a big fan before it became before the Netflix series?
When nobody had any idea, like when I would say, "Oh, I'm a Formula One fan," people would be like, "Is that NASCAR?"
Yeah,
like,
is that what babies drink? Formula?
But I mean, it was from my dad. So, I grew up, my dad and I shared a passion for cars. And so very young, we went to Formula One races when it was like a novelty in the States. And growing up, like nobody knew what it was. Like a very small, passionate, contingent of fans.
Right.
I don't know what the equivalent would be now. Maybe if you're like a really big Premier League fan in the US, right? Like big soccer fan.
Yeah.
But even soccer is bigger than F1 was.
Yeah.
But yeah, grew up a big F1 fan. They had races coincidentally in Phoenix in the early 90s on a street course. So like the same that they do now in Vegas and in Miami and in Monaco, they had one in Phoenix. They had one in Detroit in the late 80s. So I went to both of those races when I was like a kid.
That's cool.
And like really, really early memories. And so like I'll try to make it to a race every year. We did Austin this year. Austin's a great city.
Yeah, Austin's cool.
Yeah, and the facilities there is great. So yeah, I'm a baseball, football, big SC fan, mostly because of my nephew.
Your nephew.
F1 fan, and then like the rest of the time spent with the family and the kiddos.
Nice.
I have a daughter and a son.
How old?
Clay and Katie. So Clay is 11.
Okay.
Katie's 8. Clay's like on the doorstep of being a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
But, he still thinks my wife and I are cool.
Yeah.
And wants to spend time with us, So like he's not a
few more years
yet.
Yeah.
We got a couple years probably before he hits that stage.
Mm-hmm.
But like now he wants to hang out with us and spend time with us and snuggle with us. He's still
there. Yeah.
He's still there. I know we've got it coming because I remember being a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And like.
But then you come back around usually.
Oh yeah.
You come back around like you got to be
college.
Yeah, you got to be cool for a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and not not as tied to your parents, but then you come back around, you appreciate them, and family becomes just as much important as it was.
100%.
Yeah.
Like I remember just like my parents' existence was embarrassing to me as a teenager, They didn't have to do anything. Yeah. Just the fact that they existed was embarrassing. Right. And then I went away to college, and I think when I came back, I was like, maybe they're not so bad.
Newfound appreciation for sure once you
absolutely
go out in the world a little bit.
Yeah. Whether it's college or whether it's like you just move out.
Mm-hmm.
And you're dealing with all the, stuff that you got to deal with as an adult. And you're like, you know what? Maybe it wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Maybe they did know a little bit about what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I mean, my, support system, my family is fantastic.
That's awesome. It's huge. Yeah. We have a good support system in our family too, so I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Is there anything else that you feel that we didn't throw out on the table that you want to chat about, personal or business? Any appeals you want to make to people, or?
No, that's a good one. Appeals.
Yeah.
No, I think what I would say is if you're seeing this and you are a first-time home buyer or a repeat home buyer and you got questions, sometimes people think like they're being like a drag or a weight if they call me just because they have confusion or questions around buying a home. Or they hear a term and they don't know what it is. They don't want to bother me. This is why I do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, please, if you have a question, like I'm more than happy to be a resource. And I've told people that a million times. Like, even if they're not going to use us, even if they are already tied, like, if you have a new build, sometimes that new build lender has a crazy incentive and they're not going to use us. Like, I will still be an advocate and a resource for you.
Right.
So, I would say, very rarely does fear make us make good decisions, right? In almost any aspect of our life.
That's very
I'm not talking about like don't jump off a cliff. I'm talking about like fear of taking the leap to buy a home for the first time, fear of changing the company you're working at. Those types of things, like fear is rarely the best motivator. It rarely leads you to the best decision.
Right.
So if you're just nervous or scared or, hesitation about making that move, like give me a call. I'm always going to be here just as a resource to help you make the right decision. Maybe it's buying a home, maybe it's not. Maybe it's leaving where you are, maybe it's not. But I'll at least talk with you.
Right.
I'll ask you the questions so that you can come to the best decision for you, not for me.
Open door policy.
Open door policy.
I love it. Well, I do have one more thing to say.
Yeah.
I know that this podcast style, this will be the first one, right? It's
Yeah.
It's gonna live on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
I will not. I'm gonna hand the baton to you, and you'll be hosting these, right? So,
Yes.
What's your vision as far as who you want to talk to? What can people expect from this podcast style? I think as of now, we're gonna start with one a month, right?
Yeah.
So this one kind of kicks it off.
Yep.
Get to know who you are, but then you're gonna take over as host and start inviting people onto your podcast. So, what agents is it? Past client, like what are you thinking for this podcast?
I think it's going to be a little bit everything. Okay. I mean, first, like the first obvious target is agents, right? Because one, I think for the most part, they're like super interesting people.
Yeah.
A lot of them came to this career in a roundabout way. So finding out about them, and we work, hip to hip, side by side with them so often. So it's going to be a good amount of agents who hopefully provide a lot of good content for clients, but also other agents who are out there. And then other people who are involved in our industry. And when you think about it, it's really anybody. Almost anybody could be a home buyer.
Yeah.
But like I'm sure we'll have insurance people on here. We'll have a couple financial advisors, right? This is a big asset. How do you manage that, and how do you manage your other assets? I do want to get like an attorney, a trust and will and estate attorney on here. People minimize the importance of that when they're planning. And then it'll probably end up also just being some friends in my sphere and people who, want to talk about what they do and who they are.
Have the wifey on sometime, maybe?
I should.
Yeah.
And she's like the most important person in my business.
No, I think
so
that would
should have her on here
Yeah.
and ask her the questions about what she really thought when I told her I was going to make this move. And again, as you know, in this, most self-employed folks experience this. Like they have to have a lot of patience at all times. Right? Because like I was on the computer last night, today's Monday, Sunday night at like 9:30 after the kids were asleep, sending somebody an updated pre-qual form. Like sometimes that's required. Yeah. It's a lot of patience.
It's the nature of the beast.
It is a lot of understanding. So yeah, like, it's like the number one VIP.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it sounds interesting. I'm obviously going to be here and producing them with you, but I think that there's gonna be a lot of value that you can share with the people that tune in and watch. So for those of you watching now, hit the subscribe button, right?
Yeah.
Like this video, add comments, gas up Noah and support him as much as you can. And I'm looking forward to jumping in this podcast journey with you for sure.
And one more thing.
Go ahead.
Certainly a thank you to you. Before we met, like, I don't know if I did anything on social media. I probably posted like congratulations to my clients, and that was about the extent of it. So thank you to you for like opening my horizons on what this looks like and helping direct me and like give me good feedback and providing, a place where I can do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And like being there, really, we were talking about it, I think, before it started, like when we found the place our current office in, which is gorgeous. If you've never been to our office, like, you should come by and check it out. But I remember you walking through the carnage that
construction
was the
zone.
space before it was built, as we were, moving wires out of our way and stepping over, rusty nails in what became our space.
Yeah.
I mean, you were there the entire time. I think you came and met us when there were like 8 of us in 2 tiny offices.
You guys were jammed in that little,
oh man,
like sardines.
Yeah. So thank you too.
Absolutely.
For everything you've done for us.
You got it.
Yeah.